Have you ever thrown yourself headfirst into your business, into your job, into chasing growth, chasing deals, and chasing success, only to realize that your life outside of work is, quite frankly, falling apart? And it's more common than you think. And I've been through it several times. But imagine if, instead of burning out, you built a life where faith, family, friends, finance, and fitness all work together and not in competition, but in harmony. So you're listening to the Main Street Patriot, where we fight for the non-institutional investor and help them build wealth outside of Wall Street. My name is Jimmy Vreeland, and I'm your boots on the ground host, helping you secure real estate deals before the hedge funds lock you out. So today on the show, we're diving into a question anyone who is looking to build wealth should ask. How do you grow your wealth without losing your soul, your marriage, or your health? And to help us unpack that, I'm joined by my business partner and field general of our wholesaling operation, Bobby Kough. He's another West Point grad, another Army football player, and another former Army officer. And he's the guy who's making sure our team snags these deals before they disappear. In this episode, you can look forward to learning 3 key things. What are the 5 F's and why they matter? How they align with personal growth and with business growth, and what happens when your team starts aiming for dreams just beyond profit. And here's the twist. This isn't about all the soft, gooey talk and the feel-good slogans. We're talking strategy, structure, and even how a surf boat played a critical role in transforming our company culture. So if you're ready to stop living like it's just about the next deal and start building something truly fulfilling, then stick around for this episode of the Main Street Patriot podcast. Hello, welcome back to the Main Street Patriot podcast. This is the podcast for people doing very well in their business and they know they need to get into real estate. And so why is it the Main Street Patriot podcast? Well, we all know Wall Street is trying to get onto Main Street, but me and my team, we're on the street fighting for the non-institutional investor, getting you guys rental properties before the hedge funds buy everything up. And this week, I got a special guest. I got my business partner in our wholesaling business, I Buy Houses, Bobby Kough. Bobby, what's up?
What's up? How you doing?
I am terrific. So, Bobby, give the people what they want to know. Give them the background. And by the way, if we're using this Main Street Patriot battle analogy, Bobby is the field general, making sure you guys are getting your houses before all the hedge funds take everything, and then real estate investing is a thing of the past.
Yeah, absolutely. So similar to Jimmy, I have a background in the military, graduated from West Point in 2015. After that, I served as an engineer officer in the Army. Got done with that. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. I started flipping a couple houses, bought a couple rentals, and then a good buddy of ours, Duncan, reached out and was like, hey, there's a guy that's, in St. Louis. At the time I was at Fort Leonard Wood, which is not too far, about an hour and a half away. And he's like, hey, he's in real estate. Sounds like you enjoy this real estate game. Why don't you have lunch with them? So came out, met Jimmy. He offered me the job. I'm pretty sure I put an offer on the house after our first meeting because I was so confident that I was going to get the job. But yeah, so since 2021, I've been head of the wholesale department. And we've been buying up all of St. Louis and now Little Rock and Wichita.
Nice. And then what I do remember about that meeting, Bobby, is you're like, I have these offers from Accenture, this, but I was like, your stuff seems so much better. And I was like, yeah, our stuff's awesome.
Yeah. I was pretty set on moving out to Arizona and going to work at Honeywell. If I would have done that, I don't know how happy I would have been.
And then for the audience, I believe, so between 2023 and 2024, what was the growth?
2.7 times.
Nice. And then 22 to 23?
22 to 23, probably about 20% growth.
So I'm going to say you between 5 and 10x the size of the wholesaling business.
Yeah, I'd say that's about right.
Nice. So what Bobby and I did want to talk about on this podcast is something that we hold near and dear to our heart. And I'm not sure if it's that around in business that much. We got it from a business book, but it is the concept of the 5 Fs. And Bobby, you turned me on to the 5 Fs from a book called Scaling Up. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So basically, the five F's are faith, family, friends, finance, and fitness. And the idea with that is that if you kind of take that holistic approach, you set goals in each of those areas of your life. It just leads to ultimately a better quality of life.
And so most people get excited about something because they're seeing some gap somewhere else. Why'd you get so fired up about 5 Fs? And we'll go into each of the 5 Fs for the audience in a second, but I kind of think the story of how you got here is very important.
Yeah, no, I mean, I recognized, especially when I got out of the military, I went through a little bit of a transition. I was trying to find my identity. And then, I started working for, iBuy, and I want to say I devoted majority of my time to the business. I probably wasn't a very good husband, wasn't a very good father. My faith journey was very, very weak. So I kind of recognized that I was focusing all of my time and energy on really just finance. Friends were almost non-existent at that point. And if you do that for too long, you start to see those gaps that you mentioned.
Do you want to mention any of them?
Yeah, I mean, dude, like before implementing the 5 Fs and actually taking it seriously, I mean, to be open and honest, my marriage was not going well. Molly and I were on the verge of divorce. I wasn't prioritizing it. Friends were pretty much non-existent. I had a lot of really good buddies from West Point in the military that I was kind of just avoiding and putting on a shelf. And I recognized that, I needed that camaraderie. Ultimately, I needed to fix my marriage and become a better father. And then, it's pretty cool to see how all of those things work together. It's like, you work on the faith aspect of life, then, marriage and fatherhood kind of fall into place. And then, it ultimately leads to you becoming a better version of yourself.
And then for the audience, how old are you?
34.
And then this will be a completely real estate subject, but so I'm 45, and I would say I had a similar trajectory, and it happened right after my second kid. I don't know what it is about the second kid. Here's my theory about what it is about the second kid is you get married, there's the honeymoon period, everything's cute and funny, and then the first kid comes and the grandparents are really into it and everybody's into it. And then, you and I are both the oldest children in our family. So for not only just first kid, but first grandchild, like Maria walked on water to everybody.
Yeah.
And wanted to help out and everything. But then Bubba, the second kid's real. It's like, oh, wait, people aren't as excited to babysit too. People, now you're playing man to man. And like the first kid needs something, but then there's the baby. And so I would say I had a similar trajectory about 10 years ago, like only focused on work, only focused on money, not the greatest husband, not the greatest father. Part of it's because you know what you're doing because you have 2 kids and they're young.
Yeah.
And so, if you and I have had the similar journey, I'm assuming other listeners have gone or going through the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's our problems with that are not unique, unfortunately.
And so now you got I'm trying to put myself in a listener's shoes. Like, all right, cool, 5 Fs. I get it. You doing it on your own. What's this got to do with business? Why would you bring it to the business?
Yeah. So I think it goes back to something that you've mentioned in a couple of your presentations, and I think in a couple of your podcasts. It's like at the end of the day, as an individual, our pursuit is to become the best version of ourselves. Well, and then, what do you say about a company? The company, its pursuit is to become the best version of itself. So those two things really nest well. And then, I think a big reason as to why we brought it to the business is I think you and I and the other people around us that were serious about it, we saw the impact that it had on our life. And it would be kind of selfish if we're, getting after it, things are getting better in our lives, and we kind of just withheld that. Right. So I think we also just had that desire to bring it to the team and, have an impact on their lives.
And then what really was like, whoa, this is a perfect match from the business is when we read that book, The Dream Manager.
Yeah.
So why don't you give the audience your summary of The Dream Manager, and I'll give it mine. But if you're listening to this podcast and haven't read The Dream Manager, whether you're a business owner, whether you're an investor, whether you're an employee, you got to read The Dream Manager.
Yeah, I mean, just to sum it up, it's basically being a facilitator to get people to where they want to be. That's just kind of like my just cliff notes on it. And I think for us, because we are so strong in kind of like the faith F, that's something that's super, super compelling.
To bring people, to make people, help people become the best versions of themselves.
Yeah, 100%.
And so, like, the quote from the book, if I'm remembering it, is the purpose of a human is to become the best version of itself. The purpose of a business is not to maximize profits. It's actually to become the best version of itself. And yeah, if you're doing that, of course you'll maximize profits. But that's the other thing about investing. And the other thing about business is the problem, if you're only going to look at profits or cash on cash return, it's not a question always of how much, it's about when. Because when you're investing and you're building, your balance sheet is growing as you're taking on assets, but your cash balance is dwindling. And I know I suffer from this, Bobby, but I have a temptation to have an attachment between the cash balance in my bank account and one in my self-worth, and also in my net worth. And then this is kind of fun. I love having these fun conversations between talking about self-worth, net worth, and cash balance. It's like, it's a somewhat hot, spicy subject, but it's also very interesting.
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely, I mean, you know, a lot of when I came into the business, I was pretty ambitious to hit my targets. And yeah, I mean, when I solely focused on that, I just saw everything else around me deteriorate.
And by that, do you mean cash?
Yeah. So specifically cash. I also bought some iffy houses, that Pigeon Forge house that we talked about. I bought some assets. I had some success early on with.
I still think in 10 years, your Airbnb you're going to look back and be like, that's a great investment. That's
yeah. I'm hoping that market definitely turned. It seemed like right after I bought it, but no. So I had some success early on, and then I was just like, all right, I'm going to go full bore into this. And I did leave my wife and family behind when I made that decision.
Was that was asked for forgiveness, not permission purchase?
Yeah. I kind of pulled the plug on it or pulled the trigger on it. And my wife's constantly looking at me like, when are we going to sell this thing? When are we going to sell? I want to buy a nicer house. When are we going to sell this thing? So, but yeah, no, I mean the dream manager part of this and bringing it to the business, it's had a huge impact on the individuals in the organization, which I think has been like the coolest part about it.
And then, so I like to talk about things in like different ways, but let's say you were some like narcissistic Marxist being like, oh, they're businessmen. They have to be evil. They just have some deep down selfish intent, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, maybe that's true, but here's the deal. Our team, we're trying to make a decentralized self-multiplying team. What does that mean? It means we got to have team members on the team who, one, know what they want, believe they can get it, and have the confidence to get after it. And so if we're only giving them business problems to solve or only giving them the confidence to solve business problems, it's like, how are they going to get the reps? Like what I love about the 5Fs is when I get a win in fitness, generally it builds my confidence to get a win in finance. And then so little wins build into bigger wins. And it's when you're winning in 5 different areas, all it does is build confidence. Because here's the downside of that. It's like a 5-legged table. Let's just say there's 4 F's and it's a 4-legged table. But if you have one of those tables that are uneven, the table's going to rock. And if you're missing a table or missing a leg, the table's going to fall over.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we hear stories all the time. I mean, there's shows out there like American Greed. I mean, I know people in my life that have focused, they're well past, getting it resolved. They're in their 70s, 80s, and they focused solely on finance. And, they have a bunch of money in the bank, but their family situation is kind of tragic. And you look back and you have to ask yourself, like, number one, is that who I want to be? Number two, is that success? I'm sure that individual or those individuals that are experiencing that, they're looking back on their life and they're like, man, I wish I would have done it differently. So I think we're also trying to facilitate that where, yeah, we want to all make a bunch of money. Like we want to set everybody up in our company to where, they're able to achieve their dreams financially. But I would say the remaining 4 F's are equally as important. And another big thing that, as you were saying that, Jimmy, like you almost put a ceiling on yourself. You kind of cap yourself with finances if everything else is in shambles.
Well, if you look at the last 300 years of economic history, like economics goes in cycles. There's no doubt about it. So if your self-worth is only attached to cash, you're gonna have a cyclical life, right?
Yeah.
Now, why don't you? Everybody would rank order the F's differently. How do you personally rank order the F's?
I've actually kind of gone through this within the last month. I put faith up top. I would put family below that. I would put fitness, then finance, then friends. And the reason I would order it that way is that if I could be really good at those top 3, my belief is that the finance piece will be inevitable. Like it's going to happen, right? So like I'm a Christian, so from the F standpoint, being a Christian means what I believe it means is that I should be one of the hardest working people in the room, right? Because God's given me gifts and talents that I should use to further his kingdom and multiply.
Can I play snarky college student?
Yeah.
Can I play snarky Marxist college student?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I thought Christians were just supposed to be, a little soft.
Yeah. So I actually thought about this a little bit before this podcast. I was thinking about how you can misconstrue. So the book, Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, right, by John Mark Comer.
Yeah.
Great spiritual book. I can see somebody having that sort of mindset, read that book and saying, oh, this means that I do nothing but walk and pray. And it's like, absolutely.
It's a great book, by the way. But yeah, I do think you could look at it that way.
Yeah. If you don't have the correct frame going into it, you can look at Christianity. Like some people even look at Christianity as kind of a like they're signing up for poverty or they're signing up like, hey, I don't want to have a whole lot of nice things. And I think it goes back to the parable of the talents where it's like, dude, like the most honoring thing that you could do is maximize like your God-given ability, like go out and multiply. And if that results in dollar bills, like, so be it. Like that's, you obviously don't want to make those things your idol,
or attach it to your self-worth.
Right. And that's, I think a couple years back, you and I had this conversation when I started making, some actual money. And we talked about it and you said something that stuck with me. It's like, hey, admittedly, like you are playing with fire with that from a spiritual standpoint. Like you can fall into that trap of making it your self-worth, making it your idol. But man, it all goes back to the 5 F's. That's why it's so important to have all of those prioritized and in a good spot, because, if your family's in a good spot, hopefully you have a good wife that's like, hey, Bobby, like, you're making money your idol. Don't do it. Right. Like focus on Christ, focus on your family. So that's kind of how that holistic approach has helped me.
And then I'm going to bring it back to the 5Fs. So I would say since the business has done better, there's been two things that have expanded with our lifestyle: better vacations and my children's sports. And you just started junior soccer. You just started 5-year-old soccer. So you're about to experience that.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
But
vacations for us, I've definitely, yeah, we're able to take trips that, if I were in a different financial position, like the trip that I just got back from, we were in Monterey, California. It's like I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't have some emphasis on the finance F.
yeah, and so finance F leads you to accomplish family Fs of better vacation, which, this is a little bit of a stretch, but allows for your children's fitness F. And by the way, if you saw our schedule, I know Susie and I have gone too far, but whatever. And if you are bringing in liquidity, not that what you donate is how you measure yourself, how you're growing spiritually, but it gives you the option to be generous.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. That's something that I didn't even consider until you started talking about it. I mean, we are also called to, give tithes and tithes and offerings. And if you're weak in that F, you're less inclined to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's less of an option. But now there's been, there's plenty of, this is where we get into spicy territory. There's definitely plenty of very spiritually fit people, great people where, maybe I don't think they have a charisma to have a strong F in finance. Like, cool. Some people are called to poverty on that road.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it just boils down to, hey, what are your God-given talents? And, some God-given talents might not lead to that exchange of value between, you multiplying that talent and dollars in your pocket. And that's no different. It's not less honoring than if that does, your talents do result in money. But I mean, there's plenty of very good people that are spiritually sound, that are really good with the 5Fs, and maybe that's just not their calling.
But then, if we go back to St. Paul, body of Christ, like everybody has different roles in the body.
Right.
And some people have the gift of gab, and some people love selling, and some people, it's like, because my spiritual journey, I was like, do I have to give up all these things I think are super fun, like selling and setting targets and all that stuff? And so that's how I would answer the snarky Marxist, is like, if you have it's like the Spider-Man thing. If you've been given great gifts, you have great responsibility.
Yeah. Well, and I think that goes back to why we want to implement the 5Fs in the business, right? Like take the money and everything else aside, put all that aside, and the success of the business and all that stuff. If we solely just focus on the impact that we have with the people that come into our company and join our ranks, like, I mean, that in and of itself, we couldn't do any of that without those other things being situated, right? We can't grow the team and have more influence.
And for you investors listening, the sad reality of modern society is, since we're not all yeoman farmers anymore, is Bobby and I are going to spend more time together than I'm probably going to spend with any of my kids this year. And like, the people you work with, you are probably going to spend more time with them than your kids. And I don't know, I'm not going to put a value statement on it. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
And so if you have a higher purpose than just wanting to show up at 9 and then hear the whistle and like be like Fred Flintstone and fly off the dinosaur's back and shut it down for the day, you're going to have something else to relate to. And then, the other thing I know is important to you, Bobby, is like, athletics and the things that you learn as a team. And, we've tried to build a business where we have a locker room atmosphere with all the healthy things of the locker room.
Yeah.
Minus the smells and stuff like that. But competitive, fun, tight environment. And it's not necessarily easy. on a football team and it's 18 to 22-year-old males, a very common interest
Mm-hmm.
and very easy to build that environment. But how would you say the 5Fs is helping to build that team environment?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, you start to see that different individuals on the team, they emphasize that, like, their priorities might be completely different than yours, than mine, than some of the other leaders on the team. Um, and that's the cool thing about having five of them is that, kind of use it modeling after the manager, you can facilitate and support them in achieving what they want to achieve. Right. So like maybe it's not finance. Maybe some people are really high on friends and they want to spend time with more friends and have like a big community and have people come over for dinner all the time. Um, it allows you to kind of gain that insight about the individual to better support them.
And so like a team member of ours, Christy, like she loves antiquing, right?
Yeah.
You and I, not a lot of interest in it, but
Nope.
like when Christy hits a target and she gets to go antiquing, I'm like, hell yeah. Like I get excited.
Yeah. Yeah. We have some team members that are just really into, their pets. So, I just can't relate. It's not a problem. I don't have a whole lot of pets myself. But when they're able to go rescue a dog and, feed it and do all that stuff, like they get pretty pumped up and it's like, cool. Like we're able to kind of help facilitate that.
Yeah. And for me, a win is a win is a win. Like the reason I love pickleball is it's such a leveling for ridiculously competitive people.
Yes, very much
like,
so.
If you're just listening to this, Bobby is like 6'4". He's a big dude. So jiu-jitsu, football, he's going to crush a lot of people. But pickleball is the great neutralizer.
Yeah. So my brother is about the same size. We both played college football and we show up to the pickleball matches and we're playing, Grandma Ethel and Rosie and they just smoke us. Like it's very frustrating.
And so, yeah, that's the other great thing about the 5Fs and celebrating as a team is a win, is a win, is a win. It's also it's a great leveler. And to be able to support other team members, all you got to do is just kind of know what their targets are inside the 5Fs.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I think the old approach to business, kind of like what you were saying, like the Flintstone approach, like 9 to 5, I'm out. There's also a part of this, and this isn't meant to sound like selfish or we're doing this for the wrong reasons, but I'm starting to believe that if we don't support people in all of those different areas, like they're going to start looking for that outside of the workplace, right? And they're going to become more distracted and they're not going to be able to perform as well as they could. And I'm not saying that that's the reason why we're doing it, but it goes back to, I think you kind of put a ceiling on the people around you if you only focus on the KPIs and the bottom dollar.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody's having a struggle at home, the family F is off. You're lying if you don't think that's going to affect the finance F.
Yeah, I wonder where that came from. That old school compartmentalization where you had, work was work. This was that. It's like I'm starting to see that it's all one thing. It's all life.
My best guess is it came from like the factory workplace. Like Henry Ford did not care if the dude putting on the windshield, really, just as long as he showed up and put on 100 windshields a day.
Yeah, this is interesting, a little off topic, but do you think as we start to see some of these companies say, hey, we're going to bring manufacturing back to the US, do you think what we're doing is going to become more of a rarity?
No. Okay. The younger people, I talk a lot of smack about millennials. Personally, this is off topic. I love Gen Z. I think these kids are hungry, but I had 10 years of millennials that wore me out. But I do think what millennials have forced is we can't go back to that Henry Ford thing. Like you have to have a higher purpose for millennials and Gen Z. And then, just you and me. And then this is a generational thing. We've talked about this before. You and me having this podcast about the F faith. In the early 2000s, that was like a taboo.
Yeah.
And so I think that's coming back in. I think, that's why all this is, people are, my other theory is this, is we live in the most abundant society in human history, in the greatest country ever. And then we had this like weird 2010 to 2020 thing where even though we were the most abundant society ever, everybody was chronically unhappy.
Yeah.
And so everybody's looking for purpose and meaning. And so that's why I think stuff like the 5Fs are coming back. Like, that's why I was begging for it when, I'd have like these like 5F targets that I would squirrel to myself and I didn't want to talk to about anybody, with anybody.
Yeah.
And then, when you brought it into the game, like, no, we're going to talk about this stuff. We're going to lead off this stuff. We're going to have fun together. I was like, oh, thank God. And then what I've noticed out of Gen Z is that the younger people love this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think there's some statistics out there and don't quote me, but, job turnover rate for Gen Z, I believe is pretty high. Like they're bouncing around to a bunch of different jobs. And I think the underlying thing that they're looking for is that higher purpose. It's probably that higher purpose. I know those generations, they crave connection.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of like the first generation. Because even when I grew up, like cell phones weren't a thing till, sophomore, junior year of high school.
Yeah.
These
deep
kids
down, they're all like, man, do I have real friends?
Yeah, I mean, you see it nowadays. Like, and I have to make sure that I check myself with my kids, but they're born with like a tablet in their hand. They can navigate your phone at like 2 years old, which is insane. So I think that's another topic, for a different day. But I think technology has kind of created that distance between human relationships and connections. And I think just the younger generations, like they really, really want that. And when they come into an environment, like I think if we do it the right way, we're not going to have a whole lot of turnover just because we're providing that sort of environment for people.
And then give me your thoughts on this. I'm going to speak to the investor who's listening to this and being like, how does this relate to me? And here's how after working with investors now for close to 10 years, I see the same error you and me talked about making. Like the only F that mattered to us was finance. And what I have found is that it's the other 4 Fs that bring the fuel to want to do the finance. So if you're saying, hey, I just want to get 30 rentals and that's all I care about, and I'm not going to, and I've seen this happen. People be like, I'm not happy till I earn enough money to have 20 rentals. And I got to be like, hey, bro, it's the journey, not the destination. And these rental properties, these flips, these are just your store of wealth. They are not going to create the wealth for you. I think it's the other 4 Fs that's going to create the wealth. And like, what's the point of having 100 houses if you're not happy at home? What's the point of having other houses if you don't have a relationship with purpose and meaning? And then, what's the point without the other? All that real estate does is augment your wealth. You know how people say alcohol just augments your already personality?
Yeah.
I think real estate does the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to end up like Mr. Scrooge, with a bunch sitting on a bed of gold coins with nobody to share it with. Yeah. I think that's a big part of it. And, it's your why behind everything. There was something that Jason Medley said, and you've repeated it back to me. It's like an unbridled vision or undisciplined vision is a curse or something like that.
Undisciplined vision is unbridled vision is a curse. Disciplined vision is a blessing.
Yeah. And I think if you're just like, hey, I'm going to go get 100 houses, would you say that is a little bit, without that why, without that greater, higher purpose, would you say that becomes a little bit undisciplined?
It's completely undisciplined. Like, here's what I know about real estate. No one wants real estate. Everybody wants what real estate can get them.
Yeah, that's good.
Like that house you have in Pigeon Forge. Like, you don't care about that house.
I've never been. I've never seen it.
Yeah. What did you want? You wanted some cash flow and you wanted some net worth, right?
Right.
I believe you're going to get both over time.
Yeah.
And then, but if you were going to sit and wait for that to happen and ignore your other four F's, like what a waste.
Yeah. I mean, life would just blow by me.
Yeah. And then what I've seen in kind of what I've done is like, I want a family F. I want a fitness F. It's like, cool. Let's bump up the finance F so I can go get that.
Yeah.
And it's those other F's that bring the desire to then create more value for other people and then sell that value, get greenbacks, and then throw it into the other four F's.
Yeah. I mean, as you're saying that, I'm thinking about the boat. I mean, that thing might as well have an iBuy logo on it, right? Like
that might be another permission versus forgiveness thing.
Yeah. I mean, you think about, obviously you've enjoyed it a bunch with your family. You've done a bunch of Branson trips and had a lot of fun there. But then now we're doing these Branson trips as a company. So, I mean, how many times do you think we were on the boat last year? And like, it was awesome.
And so for the listeners, what Bobby's talking about is when I first started the company, I had one goal that when I got up in the morning, I'm like, I'm going to do this so I can go get a big boat and I can wake surf off it. And that's what I love doing. And it was selfish, but I kind of a Jordan Peterson line I love is it's better to be walking on the wrong map than not walking at all. And so was it missing the faith F? Yes. Was it missing the family F? Kind of. Was it missing all four F's? Yes, but it got me up, it got me moving, and it got me confidence. And so once I accomplished that goal, I was like, wait a minute, it's cool I have this, but wait, now I can take my family on it. Now I can take my friends on it. Now I can take work colleagues, and that's how we become friends on it. And so my favorite thing about 5Fs is it's like jujitsu that like they all roll into each other. They all support each other. They're a positive feedback loop. But then the downside of it is they're a negative feedback loop. And if you don't take care of one, it can bring everything else down.
Yeah. I mean, dude, the boat, like a little bit of a backstory, but I think we can attribute being on the boat to this partner. Like this partnership is a result of being on the boat. Yeah. So what was it? End of 2023. I sat down with Jimmy. We kind of talked initially, and I was like, hey, my plan is to work with you for 2 years and then I want to go start my own thing. Well, I stayed about 3, and then I had a conversation with Jimmy, and I was like, hey, look, I want to start my own thing. And he's like, okay, I'll support you. What do you want to do? I was like, well, I want to start my own thing with my brother. So for about a month or two, we kind of said, okay, cool. That's what we're going to do. I think the plan was I was going to be done by Q1 of 2024 or something like that. Like make sure the business was taken care of. And then I was going to, ride off and do that. We went out to a Branson trip, and I think everybody came back from that trip, and we were just like, hey, we have something special here. Like,
let me back up for the audience. Branson is the greatest place on earth. It's Table Rock Lake, and then it's got the greatest strip. It's like family friendly Vegas. So it's in the middle of Missouri. I know some people know it, but it's the greatest lake town ever. And so, sorry, keep going with the story.
Yeah. So we spent this trip out in Branson. I think we hit Q3 targets. We crushed it. It was our best quarter ever. We went out there, and then it was really a combination of all the Fs, right? Because if you remember that Sunday morning before you guys went to mass, we were out wake surfing, listening to gospel music, right? So you had pretty much all of the Fs tied up in that one experience. We came back from that trip, and we were like, okay, hey, like I think we should reconsider. Let's talk about it. Let's see what we can do. And then we ended up merging companies, and now we're in multiple markets. And if you didn't have that resilience and that pursuit of the boat, like who knows? I don't know. I don't know what happens.
Here's another investing concept. Like great investors invest for when they have a known downside. So I'm going to try to relate it to this. Known downside and then unlimited upside. Like if you look how I invest, it's always like a rental house. Your known downside, your down payment. The bank has most of the risk. And then you have unlimited upside. If the market crushes and the house grows 2 to 3 times, great. If it just beats inflation, great. And you're almost guaranteed to beat inflation. But the boat, I had a known downside. Known downside was the down payment for the boat. the angry wife who wasn't happy that I just went and bought the boat anyway, the inconvenienced wife when I'm like, hey, let's go to the boat every weekend. But the unlimited upside was that it created relationships. We had fun. And like for the audience, one of my favorite memories on that boat is I love irrationally competitive people. Bobby happens to be irrationally competitive. My daughter is irrationally competitive. So I don't even know how it started last summer, but so at the certain point, so I've had the boat for a while and I've had a lot of time on a surfboard. And so Bobby's getting there, but he can't quite compete with me because I've had more time under tension.
Yeah.
And Bobby can beat everybody else on the team in surfboard. And then so he's like, you could see him looking around like, who can I compete with? And he just happened to notice my 13-year-old daughter. And so he starts talking smack to her about who's a better surfer. So the highlight of my summer last year was a surf competition between my daughter and Bobby. It was amazing.
That was pretty good. I have no shame competing against how old was she then? 13?
She's 13.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty funny. And I would say she's probably one of the best ones out there too.
Yeah. That's a family F. I want my children around irrationally competitive people who are good people. Like that's a huge win for a dad.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of, tying it all back around. I mean, I can't even really imagine moving forward with the business without the 5Fs. Like now that we've introduced it, like I can't really think of an environment that I would want to be in that lacks that. Like it just doesn't make sense to me anymore.
It'd be boring.
Yeah.
So what would you say? Let's say you're like listening to this podcast. Maybe you look at scaling up. I'll put in the link to the show notes, guys. There's a great LinkedIn article by Vern Harnish who goes more into it. Let's say you're like, cool, I'm intrigued by the 5Fs. What would you, and then maybe the person owns their own business and doesn't want to introduce it quite yet, or maybe they don't own their own business and they still want to do this. What would you say? How would you get started?
Yeah. So I think the way that I got started was I sat down, I wrote down all of those 5Fs. So faith, family, friends, finance, fitness. And then I just took to start off, I didn't really set like a grand vision for any of those things. I just gave myself a 90-day goal. Like, I made sure that it was a SMART goal. So specific, measurable, attainable, all that stuff.
Give an example of a family goal.
Yeah. So a family goal at the time was I wanted to go on a nuclear family vacation. So we do a lot of stuff with family. But I wanted to do something where it was just us. So I wrote that down. The cool thing was you write that down and then what needs to happen in order for you to hit that? Like you got to bring in the finance F, right? So you have to start making some targets around how much money you're going to save, right? How much money per month are you going to put aside? When are you going to start looking around for an Airbnb or wherever you're going, what you're doing? So yeah, I would write all those things down. And I also think the really cool part about it is it's going to show you where your gaps are. A big thing that I did was weekly date nights. And I don't think I scheduled it completely weekly in the 90 days, but I was like, hey, I want to hit at least 10 date nights in the 13-week quarter. Right. So, I recognize that when I was writing those down that, I don't spend a whole lot of time with my wife outside of being with the kids. So we prioritized that. We made that happen. That strengthens your marriage. You pull faith in there. I wrote down some goals around certain spiritual books that I was going to read. And then what's really cool is after that 90 days, like you start creating some habits. So now, like, we talk about it a lot in the company. Like we're reading spiritual books left and right. Right. All of those things that I initially planned for have kind of just become business as usual.
That is the crazy thing. It's like eating an elephant and then you start biting it and then you digest it and digest into like a character trait or a habit.
Yeah. And now we're at the point where it's like, okay, I can look 5-10 years out. Like I have faith in the system. Like I could look 5-10 years out and say, hey, what do I want to accomplish? Right. Like we have some for the business, we want to run like a sports camp, like a faith-based sports camp. Like that's a huge, that kind of ties in multiple F's, right?
Yeah. But it doesn't happen without the confidence of hitting other even physical goals. You
Yeah.
know, like if I need a boost or a confidence thing, I go straight to, hey, what's a physical goal I can accomplish? Because it creates discipline. It creates like something repetitive. But that's if I'm ever in a slump, that's straight where I go to.
Yeah. Yeah. I struggled with the faith F. I struggled with consistently reading. And then what I did was I tied it to going to the gym. So I brought whatever I needed with me. Because the first thing when I wake up in the morning, like I take my pre-workout and I need to get going. I need to
Yep.
go somewhere. Like that's just how I'm wired. So I get in the vehicle, my vehicle, I drive to the gym, and then that's where I sit there and do my 30 minutes of, faith, whatever it is, whether it's, reading, prayer.
Oh, what pre-workout are you using right now?
I am using C-Bum pre-workout. So
Nah.
yeah,
It's got what's the tingly stuff?
beta alanine.
It's got beta alanine?
Yeah, it makes your eyebrows itchy. I love it.
Nice. So you got the beta alanine tingle. You're reading something spiritual. You're feeling the Holy Spirit. Like,
Yeah,
it's a powerful combination.
it is. It is. So you can tie. They all tie together, which is really really cool. That's been probably the most fun about it.
That's it. Yeah, I'll call it 5F Jiu-Jitsu because there's different combinations, different moves, and like it's almost like why wouldn't you do it? There's no real downside. Oh, well, you have to give up all the vices. Giving up the vices and then all the personal attachments to wealth, you got to give that up. That sucks. But that would be the downside.
Yeah, and depending on where you're at with that faith F, not much of a downside.
Yeah. Well, it depends on how attached you are to it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, so Bobby is going to be a regular guest on the Main Street Patriot podcast because he is the field general making sure you get a shot at these houses. And so, Bobby, I appreciate having you on. I appreciate you opening up, being vulnerable to the audience. If you guys, where can people follow you on the socials, Bobby?
Yeah, just Bobby Kough, kind of a weird spelling, Kough. Instagram, Facebook, kind of your usual stuff.
Sweet. And then I'm sure if they go to iBuy, it'll attach to you. So give Bobby a like and follow. If you guys like the podcast, please comment, please like. If you think anybody else could get value from it, please share and subscribe. And that's what I got for you. See you guys. So if you like what you heard today and you want to learn more, sign up for a discovery call with one of the Vreeland Capital success coaches at jimmyvreeland.com.